Josh Gottheimer. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us on.
All right, so you guys are the co-chairs of what's called the Problem Solvers Caucus in the House, a 35-member strong coalition trying to end all the partisan bickering. It certainly sounds nice, but with such deep divisions right now, the agendas of the respective parties. Congressman Reed, let me start with you. Realistically, is there going to be any significant change in at least tone?
I completely believe there is going to be, and we're leading the charge. And with the Problem Solvers Caucus, we've already been influential, taking a position as a voting bloc of 40 strong members, Democrat and Republicans, coming together on the government funding bill that we recently passed here about a month ago.
Well, Congressman Gottheimer, I assume you agree. That's why you created this caucus. You're pushing for some bipartisan support on issues like infrastructure, tax reform. But take health care, for example. There was really no outreach to Democrats at all, and it was voted strictly along party lines. How do you change that?
Well, I think that obviously in healthcare was the wrong approach, and I think we're seeing the backlash from that now. That's why on tax reform and infrastructure, Tom and I and the 40 of us are really working hard to find a good place where we can come together and actually move the ball forward. And it means, not insisting on 100%, but taking 80% and getting things done. And from where I'm from, and I know where Tom's from, that's actually what people want. They want us to do something, and that's what we're very focused on.
Are you hopeful that on these issues like tax reform, Congressman Reed, infrastructure development, some other issues, forget about health care for now, you'll be able to work together with Democrats?
I absolutely believe that, and working with the folks on the other side of the aisle with the Problem Solvers Caucus and Josh's lead, we're taking a position on the debt ceiling, I believe, and also maybe a budget agreement, but also being on the committee on Ways and Means that writes the tax code for America. We're inviting, I'm reaching out to the other side and saying, we want you to be part of this because that's the way we're going to solve America's problems, is
Congressman
together.
Reed, you voted to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. As you know, the other day, the president was meeting with Senate Republicans. He said that the bill you passed in the House of Representatives, strictly along partisan lines, was, in his words, a mean bill. What do you say to a president who's basically throwing a lot of House Republicans under the bus?
Well, I'll let the president speak for himself, but the bottom line is we had to move forward. With Obamacare, you just had the last segment where you're talking about counties where tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people don't have access to health insurance any longer because of what's happening under Obamacare. We need to do something, and at least this moves the ball forward going forward. And then we can focus on areas of common ground with things like tax reform and infrastructure, things like the debt ceiling and the budget agreement. We can find that common ground if we lead and do the work, and that's what Josh and I are all about.
Congressman Gottheimer, any chance that there could be some bipartisan cooperation in the House of Representatives? Let's say the Senate passes some health care legislation. It's you got to then go back to a joint House-Senate conference committee. Then there's got to be more votes. Any chance there can be some cooperation between the Democrats and the Republicans on health care?
Well, there's a bunch of us, including me, who wanted to fix the ACA and still do. It's hard to know what's in it. As we know, it's all happening in the dark of night. That, to me, is not the way we're actually going to come together around fixing it. So I don't know what's in it. It's hard to answer. But I'll tell you this, on issues, and this is where Tom and I are really focused in the caucuses, we're willing to work with anyone, Democrats and Republicans, on things like tax reform, on infrastructure, because we know that there's areas where we can get to yes, and that's what we're really focused on. How do we move forward, not just screaming at each other, but sitting down and engaging and figuring out where we can make progress.
Well, how do you deal with, Congressman Reed, with your fellow Republicans who are much more conservative than you are and much more hardline? They don't want to make any deals with the Democrats because they don't trust the Democrats and they really don't want to go forward with such deals. How do you do that?
You lead, and that's why I'm, obviously sticking our neck up, and Josh sticking his neck up. We're putting people before politics first, and I will tell you, that is the change of culture that I believe needs to happen in Washington. I believe we need to resolve this stuff doing it together because, practically speaking, 218 votes and 60 votes in the Senate is generally what you need to get policy enacted. 60 votes in the Senate means we have to work together, and from a substantive position, that's better policy for the American people.
I agree, and I think, Wolf, what you saw last week after the horrific incidents in Washington is that people more than ever are saying, hey, sit down, figure this out. Look where you can find the common ground. There's plenty of space to find that common ground. That's what the Problem Solvers Caucus is doing, and I think that's really what people want. But it takes some courage and sticking your neck out, but that's what we're here for.
Well, very quickly, Congressman Reed, is the president going to be on your side?
I think the president's looking to do a deal, and when you have that type of attitude, I think you can get a lot done for the American people.
You think he'll reach out to Democrats?
I believe at the end of the day, that's the path forward, and I think the president will agree with us.
And I just adding to that, I actually think that if it's good for a lot of our districts, which it is, infrastructure and tax reform, you know, we'll get to yes. And, you know, we have to be willing, though, on both sides to actually do that.
Let's see if you guys can do it, Congressman. Josh Gottheimer, Tom Reed, Congressman, to both of you, thanks very much for joining us. Good luck.
Thanks for having us,
it for
Wolf.
me. I'll be back 5 p.m.